Hello, everybody. Happy Friday evening. It is April 1st, April Fool's Day. I am here joined with one of our frequent guests, Jose. As you guys can probably tell, David Miller is not here. He is tied up overseas in England. So we have our special guest friend here, Jose. Jose, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Mike, why are you spoiling the surprise April Fools? I am Hispanic Dave. You're giving it all away. Come on.
I know, but listen, with one Dave goes out, we bring another David in. Today we have a special guest with us tonight. From Mint City Collective, we have David Gusler, who will be joining us to discuss everything about Charlotte FC, the fan base, the club, and just getting right into the upcoming match that the Philadelphia Union have against Charlotte FC for the first time ever in history. It'll be Saturday, Jose, 7:30 p.m. Right is the time for the game.
7:30. Yeah,
Or
7:30. I'll be at the parking lot around 5, 6 o'clock, smoking a big cigar and drinking some beer before the match. Excited.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't make this match. I know I told you, I think, before that I was, but I will be here I'll be there April 9th against Columbus, I believe is the next match. So I'll be there for that. Jose, I'll have to meet up with you maybe early and join you for a cigar and or beer because that sounds kind of nice.
My
And
treat.
and then there you go. Perfect. So now I have no choice now but to be there. So I'll definitely be there for next Saturday. But tomorrow I will be covering the match for AAT Sports Network. So you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is right there. And then Dave Miller will also be trying to chime in if he can, because of his schedule out in England. He covers a soccer team out there as well. So Dave is certainly very busy. But without further ado, and to talk about something, the pressure we saw from yesterday with Jim Curtin, I'm going to go through our sponsors real quick to get this show underway. So first up, we have Triple Threat Bets. This is the one-stop shop for all college basketball. As you know from me on Twitter, me and Triple Threat Bets have been working together all season long. Betting games, talking about different teams and conferences. So you can follow us at triplethreatwagers.com and Triple Threat Bets on Twitter. We have Manscaped, get plus free the code AATBirds at man.com. Next up, we have OddsJam, the number one sport platform for sportsbook bandits. They use an arbitrage calculator and more, so you never lose a bet again. Sign up today at oddsjam.com. Next up is Statement Games. You check out Statements at statementgames.com for a fun new way to fantasy sports and entertainment. You can win gift cards and prizes completely free to sign up at statementgames.com. And lastly, our newest sponsor is Vinny's. For this to pop in here, Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in Allentown, PA. You can enjoy Italian cuisine. They have pizza, pasta, burger, sandwiches, and more available for pickup or delivery. Order today at vinnyspizzapa.com. And lastly, the Across the Pitch gear and all the other gear from the AAT Sports Network can be found right there, aatsportsnetwork.com/shop for Lily. Tons of great gear, items, etc. I know Johnny Uleka has been getting a ton of love for his Villanova and Jay Wright themed poster. I mean, players from Villanova, Randy Foy, I believe Jay Wright himself has actually seen the poster and been trying to get orders in. So we're trying to put that as well out there. So it's a pretty cool item that Johnny did. He's very, very, very creative. Awesome stuff there. Without further ado, Jose, real quick, what are your thoughts so far from the past week or so from hearing Jim Curtin's press conferences and then coming off that big New York City win?
It's really interesting, but not all that interesting. It's a typical Jim Curtin press conference, right?
Yep.
Where such a humble guy, almost self-deprecating to an extent, always talking highly about his opponent, which, as we know, Charlotte has had a good run so far.
Mhm.
And it's not often that he's praising his own players. And the last time he praised one of our own players was our very own Mr. Harriel, who, of course, has now stolen the job from, as I mentioned on Twitter,
Mhm.
Olivier Mbaizo, who after today's World Cup draw could very well be facing against Neymar and Vinicius Jr. and Gabriel Jesus in the World Cup this coming November. So uh, back to the press conference, just
Mhm.
I think it's just a typical Jim Curtin conference again, just being very humble and playing it safe. It's certainly not what I would be doing on FIFA manager mode.
Yeah, yeah. Jim Curtin's pre-game press conferences are all very much cookie cutter. He always talks highly about the team, as you know. You mentioned here, he's kind of He's pretty serious about Charlotte. He doesn't care that it's an expansion team. He doesn't care how many wins or draws or goals they've had. He takes them seriously, and I expect his team to be well prepared. And from what it seems like, they're not going to be playing conservative when they come to Chester. They're going to play ready to win, ready to attack. So it should be an exciting match. And another thing, Jose, before I forget, if you do go to the match, ISEPTA Philly tweeted us today. Spread the word. We've added a special train for post-match travel from Chester. Leaves 10:30 p.m. on April 2nd, which would be tomorrow, obviously, to Center City. So more info for that, you can visit iseptaphilly.com. So look at that. Surprise tweet from SEPTA today. Kind of caught me off guard, but they're willing to provide transportation for those who are maybe staying in the city from Charlotte or any of our local fans. You please, get home safely and responsibly.
I can't
Jose?
remember though,
Yeah,
Mike.
go ahead.
Before I forget, I can't remember.
Yep.
Just make sure you check that train actual ride. I don't think it's an express back to Market Street. Just double check. It might be. I know that I've done it way, way ago before they took it away, and
Yeah,
it was a lifesaver when my mom was living out in Elkins Park. But that also meant doing all of the stops and the transfers. So just take a look. Don't take it for their word. Just make sure you keep an eye on it and double check where you're actually supposed to get off, and you're not just
yes.
skipping stops since it's an express at that late at night.
Exactly. If you remember after the Club America match, Jim Curtin stopped on the side of the road and picked up a Club America family and brought them back to their hotel. I'll tell you what, it's not going to happen tomorrow. So just get them safely. Don't count on Jim Curtin to pick you up on the side of the road. And yeah, as Jose said, double check with SEPTA or any other transportation to get out of Chester, which we know isn't always the easiest to get out of. But again, back to the press conference, very straightforward. But I want to just get right into bringing David onto the show so he can kind of get into the discussion about Charlotte. So let me bring him onto the show now. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Wait for him to pop up on my screen. I'm sorry if it takes a second here. David, how you doing this afternoon or this evening rather?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. Thanks so much for having me on, and excited to discuss this upcoming match with y'all.
Yep, exactly. So before we get into it, I would love to hear more about who you are, what is Mint City Collective, and how can people learn about Charlotte FC and their fan base.
Yeah. So Mint City Collective is one of the supporter groups for Charlotte FC. I'm the president for this term. I was actually elected back in 2020. So if that tells you anything, I've been in the role for a little bit of time, but as many folks know, that Charlotte FC being announced in 2019 had a short delay to a little thing called COVID, and so with the delay of the team, my status kept going forward. So president for this season, heading into the end of this year, but we're one of the largest supporter groups here for Charlotte FC. We're based here locally in Charlotte, but we've got actually chapters throughout the Carolinas. All the way actually over in Europe. We have a few members over in Germany and Italy as well, but kind of a model similar to the American Outlaws. So I know many folks are familiar with them, but having one central parent kind of organization and then miniature chapters throughout the Carolinas and throughout Charlotte, where we have local leaders kind of leading that and being on the ground, right? So, but yeah, I mean, we're here. We're happy to finally have a team and actually be able to go to matches and watch them play. So any chance we have an opportunity to talk to anyone about soccer and about Charlotte FC, we're excited because it's been a long 3 years for some of us here to build up for Charlotte FC.
Yeah, I believe seeing from the Twitter page for Mint City Collective, you guys were established in the summer of 2019. So you're right. You had that your excitement building up, and all the pandemic hits, and the world goes crazy, as we saw. Unfortunately for us, Jose, the pandemic and the COVID situation got us last year in the Eastern Conference Final. So it just seems like it's lingered. But from what we're seeing on Twitter and the videos and the photographs, it seems like the fan base is excited. And you guys play at the Carolina Panthers Stadium. From what we've seen, how has that experience been being in a football-sized stadium?
Yeah, it definitely has its pros and its cons, right? So one of the great things about it is it gives the team and our fan base flexibility to be able to have huge populations within the stadium, which I'm sure you guys saw us beat the MLS attendance record against LA Galaxy with our very first home game with 74,000 fans or more. But yeah, it is a football first stadium. They've definitely done some upgrades here and there to kind of make it more soccer centric, but it It's 32,000, I believe, give or take a little bit in the lower bowl. I will say the past 2 matches, having averaged like 30,000 fans, it's been a lot of fun. We're a new fan base, but soccer's not new to a lot of people here in the Carolinas. I grew up playing here locally. We've got tons of universities here, soccer clubs, soccer programs. So it's not a new sport for the Carolinas. It's just, we haven't had an MLS team here to be able to support. We've had USL clubs. We've had other organizations here in the past, but the fans aren't unfamiliar with the sport. So while we're new, while Charlotte FC is new, you have fans coming out from all the nooks and crannies all throughout the Carolinas to support the team. And so being in Bank of America Stadium, I mean, like you guys have seen, like, we have to problem solve different things with TIFOs and being able to smoke and figure out where the capo stands work, right? Because this is all new to us, and being able to figure this out in a football stadium first that was built in the mid-90s versus a soccer-specific stadium that's current and up to date, like Austin or Columbus or Nashville, right? Mm-hmm. So, it has its cons, but it's ours. We have to make it our own. And if you come to a match here with us, you'll hear us. It'll be a lot of fun.
I know it's I know it's certainly obviously year one, David, and again, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. Has the ownership group said anything or mentioned anything about potentially building a soccer specific stadium? I think about the land and everything that's around the Carolinas. I have family who lives in Raleigh and around that area, Apex specifically. Yeah. Any plans from that ownership group to build a soccer specific stadium?
Man, I wish I knew. So I will say it is a really bad kept secret that David Tepper wants a new football stadium here in Charlotte. So there's rumors out there that there's a new stadium in the works locally, not far from where Bank of America Stadium is now. Personally speaking and selfishly, like, I would love for them to build a new stadium and turn BOA into a soccer specific stadium or site there. Pipe dream would be something like you see at Hard Rock Stadium down in Miami, where they've added a roof to it almost to kind of make it more like a dome. I would love to see something like that happen, but they haven't really come out and said anything. Obviously, you've got some stuff in the works with the Panthers having a new headquarters down in Rock Hill. Charlotte FC still working on their headquarters here in Charlotte, so it would be great, but they haven't really come out and said anything with that currently.
David, that was the wrong answer. I think you meant to say Subaru Park, not Hard Rock Stadium. I think you meant to say
Subaru. The sponsors change, man.
Yeah, it was funny, Jose, when as Dave was kind of talking about that, like, experience being a football stadium. I mean, how different do you think the Union's fan base or even growth would have been if we had played all of our games in Lincoln Financial Field? I mean, what are your thoughts on if we had gone that route rather than kind of building PPL Park or Talent Energy, whatever it was back in the day?
Oh, Jesus, Mike, you even going through the different names is just spinning so many different memories over the years. And David's absolutely right. Whoever's got the deepest pockets typically gets their name on that shiny, shiny billboard. But I did attend a few games at the Link, soccer games at the Lincoln Stadium, and it really wasn't fun. And this is a conversation I think I had with someone not too long ago on Twitter of, you think of stadiums that Foxborough, for example, Gillette, I guess is really the name of it, for the New England Revolution, where you watch on ESPN Plus and you see so many scattered bodies around the bottom bowl. And ultimately they say, yeah, there were 13,000 people. And I'm thinking to myself, that cannot be fun. I mean, to have a concentrated 13,000 people, which is what we have typically at Subaru Park, is just a completely different atmosphere than have 13,000 spread out. I don't know how many sections are on the bottom bowl of the Charlotte Stadium, or again back to Gillette with our friends up in the north. Well, not friends, our foes up in the Northeast, but certainly a different atmosphere altogether. So I know that for the longest time we were criticizing the Union, and rightfully so. But man, must we commend them for building such a beautiful stadium where there is absolutely not one bad seat to be at.
No, exactly. And I guess that's kind of segues to my next question for you, David. How many people are coming up? Do you know if the away supporters are coming up in droves up to Chester tomorrow?
So I do know a few. I would probably say give or take 100, maybe 200, if that. is
Wow.
I think 200's max. So I mean, I would say that's being conservative is around 100. So I know when we went to DC for our very first game, I mean, we had 300-ish people come up from Charlotte. Atlanta, we had probably around 250. So we do have a pretty loyal following. Chester, Philly, that area, they're starting, I think, to get out the range where people will drive in a day. So, we'll be excited. I do know we're going to have some folks out there. Hopefully, I mean, selfishly, I want to see some mint and some blue and white Carolina baby blue out there. So hopefully we can see that on TV there, and maybe you can hear us, but we'll see. So, but I do know a few folks from Blue Furia. I know folks from Mint City Collective are going up. They're definitely meeting up there either later tonight or early tomorrow morning before going to the game.
Well,
That's
listen,
awesome.
I'm the 1 to 200 is great. I think for your first away game to Philly, I think that's an awesome number. I mean, how many times, Jose, have we seen fan clubs with 15, 20 people up there? It's just like this small little away section.
Oh my gosh, Mike! Even this last home game where it was the freeze out, where I was doing the live tweeting for you all.
Yes.
Just my God! Even looking across, even in the the 140 was strong. We're strong in that section. We're there, game in and game out. Whether it's raining, thundering, lightning, whatever you want to call it, we're there. But man, that supporter section was the away section was not there at all. I am not even joking. It was empty. So.
Yep.
David, to hear 200 strong, 150, 200 strong, I'm really excited to yell at them.
So that's the thing too, is that the away, for those who don't know Super Park and the dimensions of it, there is the river end, which is where the Sons of Ben and the Keystone Ultra sit. It's right, right by the river, and then you have the away section in that corner next to it. Basically what, Jose, 25, 50 feet away in terms of the distance between that one railing to the next railing for the river.
Yeah.
And so as somebody who used to sit in front of the away section every single time I could, you can hear everything, and the fans are going to be chirping back and forth. Yeah, even just 100 people being there is still better than I expected for an expansion team. And listen, for those 100 people, David, if you can relay the message to them, all we care about as Philly fans is be loud. If you're going to be in a away supporter section, be loud, have fun, be respectful. But the worst thing is when you have those away supporters be quiet. Like, get into the game, make it a fun environment. And hopefully you guys lose. But if not, if you guys do win, just be nice about it.
Yeah.
and don't get too rowdy. But that's incredible stuff. And now, in terms of, I guess, your schedule, and you've only played a handful of games so far, as has everybody, right? You played one match in February, and the 4 matches in March. You start out the year with a 3-0 loss to DC United, but things have kind of come around of the past month. You have the 1-0 loss to LA Galaxy, which is a tough win, a tough loss right there. And then you have the past 2 matches. You've won 2 in a row, and you've scored 5 goals in those 2 matches. So, let us into the background. How has the fan base reacted to their start, and how do you think the team has started so far?
So I would say the fans are optimistic right now. They knew it was going to be a work in progress. We had a lot of international slots, which I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter and the internet was giving Charlotte some crap about early on. It was that they had a lot of international spots. So you had a lot of players coming in late. Preseason was really rushed. And I mean, frankly, we don't have a team headquarters or practice facility here, right? So they were making do with what they got. So I will say that first 3 games, and yes, we started with a 3-0 loss to DC, followed up with a 1-0 loss to LA Galaxy, and then the heartbreak loss to Atlanta, and Atlanta 2-1. I will say the theme was, I mean, we had some really bad luck in those games. And the good news is that we improved every single match up to that point. So DC, obviously, very first thing, we didn't have any of our DPs playing. Carol wasn't there. We had essentially our number 9 playing as up top to hopefully make some magic happen in DC. So I think what you're seeing now is, Karol Swiderski being able to say, hey, scoring 4 goals basically the past 2 matches. Starting to make a name for himself already and show why he's a DP is really great feeling and making fans excited here in Charlotte. I think you're starting to see the team get a little bit more familiar with each other as well. And I mean, Miguel Ramirez, the head coach, is starting to, I think, figure out what players work best with each other. Still some small tweaks here and there, and we can get into that if you want from like a formation and players. But this week, I fully expect to be almost the same lineup as last week when we played Cincinnati. And hopefully we can come up with the same result. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but I would be happy with a draw from walking away from tomorrow. But it's been fun to see because I mean the past 2 matches at home have a win. I mean, what 3-1 win, even though I mean I know New England came off of 3 games in 7 days within that space, but a 3-1 victory over New England, and then follow that up with a 2-0 victory in the first clean sheet for the club against Cincinnati is starting to get fans cautiously optimistic and starting to see why the team is building the way that they are.
To be fair, David, FC Cincinnati is also known as Philadelphia Union too. So let's not put them up to such a high standard. Yes. But it's I have a question, and it's so funny you mentioned Miguel Ramirez, who I think was making the rounds in social media pretty early on, or I guess right between preseason and the first game, with just how desperate the situation seemed with that roster. My question for you is, and I know this is something that the union has completely moved away from, and that of the MLS draft. At this point, I think we just are so thrilled to see us throwing them away in the trash, or I guess getting pennies for the draft position for teams like Cures for coming into the league, or teams that maybe put a little bit more weight onto it. But sure. I'd love for you to talk about Mr. Bender and the type of pressure that he is experiencing as a first-year player being drafted from the University of Maryland. And what is the feeling from your supporters group and the expectations for him as a year one player and not so much an academy player like we have with the Aronson brothers?
Yeah, I will say, I think even for myself, and if you ask a lot of fans, they're kind of shocked, to be honest with you. I think they went into that expansion draft or that super draft really to say, pieces we're getting here is going to be for depth, especially for these kids coming out of college. And then to now have a player that's early 20s, 21 years old, right out of college, being able to play almost 3 matches in a row, full 90 minutes starting. That's frankly unheard of, at least for us, right? So fans here are really excited for him. I will say, at the beginning of our games, they introduced the players, and you have Carroll starting to get some chance, but Bender's definitely starting to make a name for himself here locally. So I will say, it's great to see him already make so much progress. And the thing that's been great to see too is he was kind of played out of position at the very beginning. Coming out of college, he was more of that midfield role, and then against DC, against Atlanta, against LA, they were kind of playing him at a winger position, right? And so if you watch the Cincinnati game, if you watch the New England game, they kind of started him out as a left wing, left mid, and then they kind of forced him inside in that second half. But progress for him, he's a bigger guy compared to what we had at the wing position previously. When he gets possession, he's scrappy with the ball. It's not like he's going to lose possession really easily and be able to, make some assists happen, which I think you've seen. I think he's almost got 3 or 4 assists already within 4 games, which is amazing, progress for a super draft player already.
So, David, I guess a follow-up question as we continue to explore the roster and really the moves that a first-year team has to make. And I know we experienced it, Mike, when we were coming into the scene, and I know you weren't on the Union fan wagon when it first started. I think you came in a little bit later.
2012, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that first year roster and thinking to myself, oh my God, Danny Califf and some of these other players that, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? But ultimately, that's what we had to do. Right. And when it comes to having to do things that maybe you're not so thrilled about, I would go back to signing Freddie Adu, to signing some of these other players that are, jersey sellers per se. More than anything, they're your merchandise sellers. But that doesn't have to be the role that they all take. I think of, what LA Galaxy has done over the years, or maybe some pieces that don't fit into the scheme that they're trying to build on, but rather help the fiscal responsibility as we go back to that term of ownership and having to make as much money as possible. Is Christian Fuchs falling into that same pattern? Has he done what it's expected from him? He's a PL winner. We don't have many of those roaming around the MLS anymore. So I'm intrigued to hear what the supporters feel about him, and really, is he a 2-3 year player? Is he in for a 1 year cash check out and move on type of thing? I'm intrigued.
Yeah. I mean, I would say when you see the name, right, and we signed him in that summer, you like you said, former EPL, winner there, right? It's a big name. Initially, I would say I think a lot of fans were kind of like, all right, it's an older player, probably driving some jersey sales there, coming out of a pandemic and trying to get some excitement for first kickoff, right? I will say, like, he's played a lot more than what I expected. He's played almost full 90 minutes, almost every match so far. But I think what you're going to see, and with Miguel, the formations that he's running almost the past 4 games or 5 games, they're not the same every match. And I think it's also helping Christian be able to last this long, right? He's not playing every match as a left back. He's not being left alone on an island out there. And he's, I mean, if you look at, I believe in the New England game, he was playing like a left center back almost, or even last week left center back while Moore was on a left back. So the speed is his issue going up against some of these younger, faster guys, and you do see teams start to attack him there. But for me, I think it's been great. I think the players, you're seeing somebody from a leadership role. He is very active with the younger guys in the team. He is amazing with the fans. Like, you can tell he is enjoying his time here in the stadium and Charlotte. He stays late and signs jerseys and takes pictures and is appreciative of the fans here. So it's not someone that's just coming in and signing and saying, "Hey, I'm just making a quick check and then leaving." He does seem appreciative here and is enjoying his time. Now, what I say this time next year, would I want him starting again 90 minutes for the first 5 games? Maybe not. We'll see. But I would still love to have him here on the roster, or have him have some kind of role here in Charlotte, just because it seems like the players and the staff and really the fans are taking a liking to him. It seems like he's a great guy. So.
And you don't want to forget about the phone book, right? When is he going to call some more of his friends
Correct.
on that Leicester team, right? Are we going to see a Jamie Vardy stick in the East Coast and have his Rochester team, but also play in North Carolina? I don't know. It might be intriguing. It's a Rolodex.
Right. And I'm pretty sure he's a pretty big golf guy, right, too. And we've got some golf places down here in Charlotte he can enjoy. So if Christian can make that call, I'm sure that would be well appreciative of some fans here. So
it's so funny you guys mentioned in Jose, old names and old faces. Eric, who's actually going to be on the show next week with us, he's mentioning Connor Casey as one of those old names. And so, yeah, you think back, even 7 years ago, all those names that come through the Union franchise. But I guess one question I have for you, David, this kind of goes back to your point about Bender. From looking at the team's background and research online today, it seems like the mantra or the theme, or I guess the culture of the squad, is that go for it, kind of be aggressive out there. Don't just settle for being conservative. Go out and try to win every single match to your best of your abilities. And that, I guess, could be the identity of the club. From hearing Jim Curtin's press conference this past week, he talks about Bender, and he mentions, he plays with a confidence and certainly a respect for the game, but also no fear. He's going to probably be a household name by the end of the year for those that watch week in and week out. So my question for you, and I guess kind of going off what the Union have, I mean, we have, the homegrowns down in Argentina this past week for the U.S. youth national team, scoring 6 of the 7 goals, but they all have the same relative personality. They have that grit, that aggressiveness, the go for it mentality, that Philly mentality. Same thing with Alejandro Bedoya being the captain. How do you see this team's culture coming together? And how do you think Bender, do you think he can be a cornerstone for having the team's identity and what they want to become in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, Bender's definitely. I mean, he's a kid still, man. He's young. He's learning a lot. So I would say, from a team culture perspective, I mean, yeah, he's definitely going to give it his all. I would say every single player here really puts their best foot forward. It doesn't seem like we have any of those guys in the locker room, or at least that we can tell, that is a locker room cancer or anything like that, or being able to kind of have that mentality. So when it comes to like the team and identity, I mean, like. Miguel really likes to have possession of the ball and play out of the back a lot, right? And I think what you're going to see a lot of, at least against you guys potentially, is that you're going to see a lot of possession out of the backfield, and then hopefully capitalize on those transitions. And I think having Bender in that role is going to help, right? I know we have a lot of fans in Charlotte that are already talking about like, hey, when's Benner going to get a call up, for the national team and be able to kind of be some of those younger guys that at least make a roster. But I don't know if he's quite there yet. It's only been 4 games, so we'll see. But if he can be a cornerstone guy, I mean, the fact of the matter that he's getting so much playing time that Miguel obviously really likes him already. I do think he's going to be a cornerstone for someone to move up here long term for the club and be a name here that people know for a while.
David, another question for you, and maybe this answer is a little hazy, if not,
Sure.
just hasn't developed quite yet, as this is still year 1, though the build up to it probably adds up to 2 or 3 at this point. But back to Mr. Tepper, your prime investor and ownership as a whole. What's that relationship like between you, as supporter groups, not just yours, but the other 4 or 5 that you alluded to earlier? I know that the relationship with the Philadelphia Union and that ownership group has been rocky from time to time. And I think the sentiment is that, we sell quite a bit. We reinvest internally with our youth teams, and that's absolutely lovely. But ultimately, I think we can argue, Mike, myself, and Dave, and really any other Philadelphia Union fan watching and listening, that Mikel Ua is really the first splash of cash that we've ever made. And we're a team that's 10 years old. It's unbelievable considering the pieces and assets that we have sold, and that of Mark McKenzie and Brandon Aronson, and probably not too long from now, the other Aronson in the coming years. So I'm intrigued to hear what that relationship is like between you as a supporter, or the supporter groups, and ownership.
Yeah, I would say right now there's definitely trust. I mean, we're 4 or 5 games in. It's our first season.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully any organization or club's not going to screw something up where the supporters are going to be, livid at the ownership group already at this point. So there is trust there. I would say like one of the unique things that the team has done, and I'm sure you guys have seen, is have someone like Sean McIntosh, which is that chief fan officer role. And be that really liaison between the supporters and the team. Is Sean always going to agree with us, and is the team always going to agree with the supporters? Absolutely not. But at least we know we have someone that does understand supporter mentality and what we want, understands the sport and soccer, and has that voice at the table with David Tepper, with Nick Kelly, with the club, and at least represents us for the most part from that perspective. It's been great so far from that point of view. Could there have been things that have gone better? Of course, like selfishly, would I've wanted to have the team kick off in 2021 versus 2022? Absolutely. There's things like that. Would I would not like to have PSLs? Absolutely. Like that those kind of things have been there. But when it comes to seeing the investment back into the team, seeing some of the investment back into the stadium, with the community outreach that they're doing, at least they are putting their foot forward and saying, hey, we're building that trust with the supporters and the community and the fans. So right now it's pretty good. 6 months from now, let's say, for example, they sell a bunch of players, we might have a different perspective at that point, but we'll see. So
thank you, David.
Well, I guess one question to kind of, as you just mentioned there with the community, I mean, so for those who don't know, Chester is a more urban part of the Philadelphia area, and what the Philadelphia Union and the Sons of Ben community and the Keystone Ultras, the entire fan group as a whole, have tried to do is be involved with Chester. And if you go to Subaru Park, you can buy Chester high school gear, and they've been trying to make it so it's not like we're just parking our stadium here and kind of taking your space. We're actually becoming part of Chester and becoming part of your community. And I feel like they've earned the respect of the local Chester residents and the local Philadelphia residents, because they are trying to be part of this area. Can you talk about anything that maybe the club or supporters have been doing to kind of get out to the community, or ways people can even join and help out as well?
Yeah, I can't speak for everything the club has done, but I can share a few things that they've done. And I can go into detail what Mint City Collective and the other supporters have done. But the team, I mean, I'll say like the plans that they have for the team headquarters it's the old Eastland Mall location. And for those who aren't in Charlotte, it's in East Charlotte. It's an old mall location. It was like the crown jewel for Charlotte back in the 80s for a lot of the youth here, right? And as times changed, it's become early 90s, late 90s, it became a lower income part of town. It became more of a Latin-based community out there. And you're going to be able to see now that they're reinvesting into that part of the town. Like you said, they're not just going to park up a team headquarters there to be able to say, hey, this is, here's soccer, right? They've at least reached out to the community. They actually have done a few community pitches. So for a while there I think they were going to do 22 community pitches throughout the Carolinas and Charlotte, where they're going into lower income communities, places where they don't have access to the sport or fields, and building these mini pitches for fans and for kids out there to go enjoy, right? David Tepper and I believe his wife, Nicole Tepper, have done a ton of community work in terms of donations here in the Carolinas. But I don't know all those off the top of my head. But I will say one of the unique things that we have as a supporter group with Mint City Collective, but then also with others on the council, we have a requirement to be on the council that you actually do community outreach at least once a quarter. And so you have to be able to share that. So these 5 different groups, so like Mint City Collective, Blue Furia, Uptown Ultras, Carolina Hooligans, Southbound and Crown, like we want them to be active in the community, because like selfishly we live here. We want to be impactful. The fact that I have thousands of members, or 1,500 members with Mint City Collective, and be able to say, hey, let's get behind this and impact our local community is the biggest thing that we do. I mean, with us, like we volunteer with the organization with Block Love, which helps feed and have items for homeless here in Charlotte. We've adopted streets, we've adopted highways to help clean up and do park cleanups. We've done coat drives, things like that throughout the time frame. So, community is near and dear to my heart. It's something that we could always do more of. And that's the great thing with soccer, is it really helps bind all these different communities together, and you become neighbors and community members with these folks, and you can impact their lives for a positive some way, somehow with it as well.
David, absolutely. I know we're a handful.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I know we're a handful.
No. Go ahead.
Handful of games in, and we don't want to put the cart before the horse, and certainly Philadelphia is feeling pretty good about being top of the rankings. We just went to the Mickey Mouse field that is New York FC, and figured out how to win there, and I think emphatically won this last match. It was not a question on who was the better team, I believe. But what are the expectations for the club this year, for you as a supporter, and what has been openly or externally shared by the team of the expectations for this year? I know that, we, after many, many years, and I think now 3 or 4 years of consistently winning many games and getting, top 3, if not, the top of the table for the East, we expect that. What are the expectations for you guys as a first-year team now?
Yeah, I'll share what the team shared with us first, then I'll share my expectations. But the team kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit and shared like, hey, we want to host a playoff match. So like that's in year 1. So, that's the expectation that Kelly, when he was the president for Charlotte FC, shared with folks here in the community, is like, that's what they want to do. So for us to do that, we have to do pretty well, right? When it comes to my expectations, and I think majority of the club, is that what I want to see each week is be competitive, but then improve week over week. Selfishly, yeah, I want to be in the playoffs. I want to be able to see that and be, 6th, 5th on the table would be great, right? But for me, again, just that consistent improvement. We have just one DP playing right now. We have our second DP coming off of injury and about to be working towards game shape here soon. And we still have that third DP slot. And so my expectation is the team to use that come summertime to have that push and really get us competitive, right? And so for me, this first half of the season is just be competitive, be middle of the table, and then by summertime, make that final push and be really competitive to hopefully get us to the playoffs by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I'm not sure if Mike and Dave did guessing what the table looks like at the end of the year, but I know I did. And when I looked at Charlotte, I must admit, I really have you guys on the fringe. And that was based on the signings you had when you were still waiting on a draft. You were still trying to figure out what was going to happen, because I really do believe there's such a thing as the freshman bounce, right? You really have an energetic team that expectations are so low from other teams that they underestimate you. So Godspeed in hosting a game. But certainly I really do believe you guys will be very, very competitive, since I see teams like the Chicagos of the world that maybe they're good, but I just don't see how they're going to make the playoffs when things really shake out. It's very early on.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, at least from a fan perspective, because I remember, and maybe it's just for me being a Charlotte fan, you always have that bulletin board material where people are bashing on you at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of folks that said bottom of the table, second to last at the beginning of the season. But I think you've seen over the past two matches. Again, it's just two matches, but those are 2 wins, and the teams progressively got better each match. So I think that's giving us something to be hopeful for. And then, like I said earlier, we've got our second DP about to start, probably mid to late April. And then we still have that third DP spot that we could potentially use as well.
Yep, exactly. So I'm looking at the table now. I just brought it up. I mean, going back to well, first of all, NYCFC, put that asterisk across. So thank you, Eric, for making sure they know that it was a ridiculous end to that season. And then lastly, he just to let you know, David, if you come to a playoff game, you're more than welcome to lose in Chester anytime you want. So that's that. That's some friendly rivalry right there. But no,
Gotcha.
you look at this team or this conference before the season started, and I think Jose, you and I talked about Montreal being a team that we thought could have been a bit dangerous, and now they're currently in the 13th spot. Charlotte is in the 8th position right now, in front of Cincinnati and New York City, and New England, another team that we thought would have high expectations. So the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, is definitely wide open, especially for those few bottom spots in the playoffs. And I could certainly see a scenario where you guys are at least competitive towards the end of the year. And I think that's what you want. If you're trying to build a fan base, if you're trying to build a community, you want a competitive team every single week. If you're going to lose, at least lose fighting every single time. And that seems to be what you're doing, at least within the last month. You're competing every single match, and you're also winning matches now. So like we mentioned before, you have that 3-1 victory over New England, and then the 2-0 shutout over Cincinnati. But tomorrow evening, you come to Chester to face the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. And as you mentioned already, you have done multiple formations. You've played around with the roster a bit. What are you thinking? What do you think this Charlotte team is going to look like tomorrow?
Yeah, I hinted at it earlier, but I think it's going to be something similar to what we had against Cincinnati. Miguel's played with the roster a little bit. We still have some guys out on international. So Franco was out on international leave. McCoon, who's been our starting center back, is out on international leave as well. So 2 of our starters out, but what you've seen is almost like a traditional 4-4-2, but almost like a diamond formation there in the center. And being able to have Rios and Swiderski up on top, which has been really successful. I think the past 2 matches, like I said earlier, the fact that Swiderski's got 2 goals in each one, almost had a hat trick, and almost frankly both of them, I think has been great, right? The thing that scares me a little bit is that the fact that Philadelphia, you guys have been able to have such little possession and still score and win so many games. And so the biggest thing that has helped Charlotte the past 2 games that we've won is that we've scored early, and then we've been able to hopefully hold on to possession and hold on to that lead. If we don't score early, that's where I think we're going to have a little bit of a problem because of how dangerous you guys are with that counterattack, because you guys can still win without having possession. With our past 2 games, the reason why we've won is because we've had possession and we've gotten that lead early and we've sat on it after that a little bit.
Jose, I'm going to take it to you for this question because of 2 things he said there kind of give me concern for tomorrow, and another reason why I think Philadelphia fans have to realize this is not going to be a cakewalk. I think a lot of people had expectations they would blow out San Jose, even though there was some concern that they maybe be retooled this year. That was not the case. I thought we played pretty well overall. But I think people see expansion team and think, this is going to be easy. But 2 things that stood out to me there is scoring early and, pressing up high with I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. Swiderski, right? Forward. Him being on a bit of a streak right now. What are you thinking, hearing his thoughts on it and what this team has been able to do? And some concerns that we have with Philly giving up early goals at times.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting, and you can circle this right on the chart when you see the lineups come up. But seeing what Charlotte puts up front, which should be Swiderski if he's healthy. I know there was a little bit of a hoopla with him being not healthy, but suddenly playing despite being told or telling his national federation that he wasn't good to go. So neither here or there, but ultimately circle that matchup between him and facing Elliott and also Glesnes. That's going to be super interesting to watch, especially with how dynamic that man is and moving back and forth and trying to run behind shoulders. And we have super capable center backs. That's not a question. But we also have not faced a striker like that just this year. I would say that the last one that we faced was probably somebody like a Tati Castellanos. So I guess we technically did, but he was nowhere to be seen. He was pocketed by both Glesnes and Elliott. So if Glesnes and Elliott were able to pocket a Castellanos, I'm excited to see how well they can handle a Swiderski, which, David, I'm sorry, selfishly, I hope that he ends up on the left pocket of each one during this game tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll say, I completely understand. And I will say, like, one thing that it's not showing up on the stat sheets or being able to say it, and something to watch out for is Rios up on top with him. That's what's been kind of the unlock for Charlotte the past 2 weeks, is that Rios does a lot of the dirty work. He's able to hold up play in possession and help Swiderski be able to get free and roam up there on the top a little bit. When we've had Swiderski there with Atlanta and DC, he was up top by him, or not DC, I'm sorry, LA and Atlanta, he was up top by himself. And the past 2 weeks, they put 2 up top, and it's been able to kind of add a little bit more possession and a little bit more pressure for you guys. So it's something that's going to be great to watch, because I know you guys have those center backs there, and it made people be quiet. And so it'll be interesting to see how Carroll shows up on the stat sheet tomorrow.
Yeah, or he doesn't.
Or he doesn't, right.
Or he doesn't, exactly. One of the interesting things about the Union over the past year and a half or so, and I don't know how much you watched of them last year, but one of the concerns we had last season was the fact that they had those mental lapses where they'd be playing fine and they just will completely collapse on the defense for a short period of time. And next thing you know, down 1-0. And Jose, I mean, you can attest to this. How many times were we down a goal within the first 25 minutes or so? And as Jim Curtin preaches over and over and over, the Philadelphia Union are not a team that can play from behind. They have to get the goal early, lock down on defense, and just basically suffocate the other team, which is where players like Jose Martinez and Glesnes and Elliott come into play with being that enforcer, I guess you could say, on the defense. Now, to start the season, we had Olivier Mbaizo start in the right back position, and he was not very good at all. He was benched almost the second game of the season for Nathan Harriel, who has awoken this defense in a way to really solidify that right back spot. So, one concern I have, and what Curtin highlighted with Swiderski, is his ability to go behind a line and his ability to score off free kicks and his ability to create goals on himself and be that triple threat, that, multifaceted attacker that, can be so dangerous. I'm concerned with Nathan a bit. Will he lose his man a bit if because he is still a kid. I mean, that's the thing with the Union, is we do have a lot of teenagers out there playing. So that's one of my concerns with the Union. And in terms of just, containing Swiderski, we've done well, as Jose mentioned, containing certain elite players. We saw this a bit last season, but, at the same time, you guys score a goal early and off a fluke thing like we saw against, that was in Montreal, I believe, Jose. The whole game can change, within a second. So, Jose, what are your thoughts on Harriel and how you think he might perform tomorrow facing this Charlotte team that is going to attack?
I truly do believe that he knows that it's his job to lose. Seeing that there's a potentially World Cup bound player behind him, and what that must do to someone like Mbaizo, to see that, he's in a group that could be facing the Brazils of the world in November, and he could be a second choice defender for Cameroon. He knows he needs to be at his peak performance the next few months, especially as the season winds down in November, leading into the World Cup. So for Mr. Harrell, I think he knows he needs to perform in every single game. The leash is very short in that of how much Jim is going to allow him to mess up. And that's just the beauty of this team, as Mike spoke about in a previous podcast that I joined you guys in. It's just, there's a lot of depth for this team, and the whole idea of next man up really does apply to this team, which is not something that a lot of teams can actually say when it comes to their roster depth and maybe not skipping much of a beat. Go back to last season's finale against New York City FC. We had basically the practice squad taking them to the 11th hour and keeping the game alive. So I think that has carried over. And Mike, I'll correct you. I think we're getting better with the Montreal come from behind win. I know you mentioned that we don't do well unless we score early, but that was an anomaly. It's something to keep in mind, especially with the red card.
Yeah, that's true. The red card threw a whole wrench into the entire thing, and that also played a big factor with what we could see from Mikael Ua. So we haven't seen him basically all season. We saw him briefly in the Montreal game. He comes on, it's 11 on 11. We get a red card. Next thing you know, we're basically down a man. We really don't get to see what he can do, minus a few flashes. According to Jim Curtin, they may start him. They most likely will have him come off as a reserve, and this will be a very interesting test to see him kind of go and see how he can play against someone like Swiderski. Seeing who's the better striker, who's the better attacker between the two clubs. But for Union fans, this is a very fun experience because this may be the first time we see extended time with him on the pitch. Now, I guess one question that I thought of as you were talking, Jose, David, with these changing formations and this team still trying to figure things out, how have you felt the substitutions have been, or what are some reserves off your bench that you feel like you guys can rely on a week to week basis?
Yeah. So I would say early in the season, I was not a fan of the substitutions at the start. It seemed like Miguel was trying to just see what he had a little bit. He was waiting really long into the games to make subs, like 80th minute almost to kind of make these subs.
Yeah.
I will say with Franco out on international and with McCoon out on international, we have some of our reserves or potential starters kind of filling in or, filling in as starters within that midfield, which is, I think, going to be like the biggest watch out for you guys, for us, and where you can make a difference, right? And so with Franco there, I think we've had almost, I want to say we've almost had a different like starting lineup in the midfield almost every game this season so far, leading up to this point. So you've had Alcivar now playing as a starting. We had Sergio Ruiz, who Charlotte fans penciled in as a number 6, as that CDM almost. And we had him almost as more of an attacking midfielder last week. Derek Jones, who is a guy that we signed from Houston or traded from Houston like 2.5 weeks ago. And he started as a CDM compared to Brant Bronico, who started the first 3 games as a CDM. So you've seen a lot of movement in that midfield because I think Miguel's been trying to figure out what works best, what combination of players really feed off each other well, understand the space. And again, going back to earlier, like I said, Miguel wants possession and wants the team to play out of the back. And even if you look at that Carroll goal, 10 out of our 11 players touch the ball within 60 seconds of that play and lead up to that goal. So we play out of the back. We get a lot of players involved. It gets fed through that spine, and then it goes out to the wings, and it goes from there. So it'll be interesting to see what the lineup is tomorrow in that midfield. I have a feeling it'll be the same as last week, which will be good from a consistency perspective. But if there's an area for you guys to attack, it's going to be that a little bit, just because it seems like the players have not started consistently in that same spot week after week.
So, real quick before I pass it to Jose about a question regarding the substitutions for the Union, I believe you said the name Derek Jones. Is that correct? Is that former
Yes.
Philadelphia Union Derek Jones? I haven't heard that name in forever. We were talking about old names and old people. I'm like, wait a minute, I think he said Derek Jones, and that was
He was a
yeah. As you guys
stud.
are learning,
I would love
yeah,
to know
he
what
was.
you guys
I
think
trying to
about
think.
him.
I went on his wiki. Yeah. So he's back in 15. He signed with Bethlehem Steel FC. I mean, this is going back way, way back. And in 2016, he signed as a homegrown contract. So you're going 6 years now. 5, 6 years now. I don't remember honestly, Jose. What are your remembrance of Derek Jones?
I think he was basically the backup to Maurice Adu when we needed someone to just clog up the middle
Okay.
and transition. I don't think he was anything more than that, to be honest with you. But there was something about him wearing that black Bethlehem Steel jersey that I used to love. That I always liked him. I always thought that, man, he got the short end of the stick, especially with when you sign a player like Maurice Adu of a national caliber coming from, I think at the time, Rangers. It's tough to say I'm going to beat this guy out, especially with how much money he's making. But yeah, no, gosh, yeah, I remember seeing his name on the Charlotte roster and thinking, the memories. Yeah, that's so long ago now, you know.
Yeah. What has Charlotte done so far with Derek, and how has he been involved with the team so far?
Yeah, just to kind of go back, like I shared earlier, Brant Bronico has been a former Chicago Fire player who was that like 6 and set CDM the first 3 games. And I think what you saw last week was really the week before against New England, he kind of came in and subbed off the field, but they wanted someone with a little bit more legs, a little bit more size there in that CDM, right? Again, while it is a 4-4-2, that middle has been more of a diamond, so they've been playing almost, I don't want to say like, I'm going to age myself here, like that stopper role, but Derek Jones has been able to add some size to them a little bit there in the midfield, and has been able to kind of be a little bit more physicality and be able to have that possession for them there. So Brant's been fantastic when he started for us, and he subbed on the field last week too, but Jones has been a lot more physical in that center CDM role currently. And if they want to sit and be more defensive if we go up early, I think that's what they're going to hopefully lean on him to do for us.
Nice. And now going to a comment that Eric left, you mentioned the late substitution. Sounds a lot like what Jim Curtin used to do as Aaron to here. Many fans have had issues with the substitutions at time from Coach Curtin, but in terms of our substitutions, Jose, what can you share about what Philly has to offer, and those young homegrown kids that are coming into chess are really on fire right now?
It's something that I think Jim addressed in a way in his press conference, and saying, I really owe it to the guys, but we also have a team that's working right now, so why mess with what's working? But I think the way that you can mess with it while it is working is just making those substitutions, right? It's not like you're penalized for using them all, right? It's not like you gain anything by not using them at all. So you have a Quinn Sullivan, you have a Jack McGlynn, you have the I kindly call him Baby Aronson, but Paxton. You have the Aronson, the younger Aronson, who, my God, every single day that they put any more minutes on that field, their value just continues to grow. And make no mistake, the Union are in the business of growing these players, using them on the field, selling them, replacing with somebody from somewhere else, and then continuing the cycle. And ultimately, it can just benefit us because there's just so much talent. It's not like we're just throwing names out there to be cones. These are players that can do so well. But my gosh, to see Jim start substitutions in the 80th minute when we're only winning by one, or maybe trailing or completely tied, it's just completely disappointing. And then again, I'm just a schmuck talking into a computer right now. I'm not Jim Curtin wearing super expensive Nikes and joggers every Saturday and Sunday. So he knows more than we do most of the time, but ultimately I think this is one point where he can improve on.
Yeah, it's funny because, I think when the season started, a lot of us thought that Jack McGlynn and Paxton would be the more consistent of the trio for being the substitutions. But lately, Quinn Sullivan has been making a few more appearances, and right now Quinn is on fire. He had the hat trick down in Argentina. Like I said, the homegrowns have just been, just incredible right now on the international stage. So it's great to see. I would like, as you said, Jose, to see some of the guests come into play tomorrow and hopefully as the year continues, because we do want to see players like Bueno and what he can do and how he can impact the field on a week-to-week basis. But go ahead with another question you have for David regarding the club.
David, this is more of a jokey question, to be completely honest with you, and I'm intrigued to hear what the fans think. I know Philadelphia has really regarded Jim Curtin for his fashion and what he's been showing up to the field, and really honestly being the best piece of marketing for most of the stuff that sells out from the team store. Is your team selling short sleeve turtlenecks? Are those a hot item for you guys? Because I see those and I think to myself, oh my goodness, what are we doing down there?
I will say Miguel has a lot more drip and swag than I could possibly pull off, because I don't know if I could pull off a sweater with a turtleneck with short sleeves. I will say, I mean, there was a shirt that he wore the other day, and one of the local establishments, Glory Days here, actually replicated it, which is awesome. And it's starting to sell it. I think it talks about like no war and having peace in Ukraine. But I mean, I will say, like, every outfit Miguel has, I'm starting to pay attention to it, because I'm like, man, he's only like 2 or 3 years older than I am, and I don't think I could rock that outfit. So I'm starting to pay attention a little bit more so with it. So.
Maybe that comes from looking like the Aldi version of Pep Guardiola.
I saw some other people mention Megamind and stuff like that too. So it just depends. So we'll see.
That's awesome, David.
So
thank you for being humoring me. That's something that came to mind as I've seen him, show up on the sidelines, and it's just it's always so funny to see the difference in coaches, whether they're wearing tracksuits or they're coming in like Jim with the hottest Jordans and the track,
Yeah.
the joggers and a sweatshirt, or you see coaches that are showing up in suits, and God bless them, especially if they're in Charlotte. God dang,
Right.
that's hot.
Yep. Yeah, I will say, I mean, it's
Absolutely.
I'm interested to see if Miguel keeps it up. And when you guys were talking about, your coach having, hottest Jordans and outfits, I started thinking instantly what Miguel's going to bring to the table tomorrow. So obviously we have the actual game, but there'll be the pregame outfit comparison there. We got to. I'll shoot you guys a text or something to see who wore it better tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I mean, listen, speaking of tomorrow, we obviously, we want to talk about a prediction. Players that might score. I know Swiderski's obviously right now probably one of the favorites to score. And of course, I pulled up FanDuel Sportsbook as I always do. He is at plus 310 to score. But if you had to kind of get a feel for the team and who's getting hot at the right time, what do you think is a possible goal scorer tomorrow for Charlotte?
So I would say Swiderski is going to be one. I honestly would say Rios is going to be another one that you can keep a look out. He's had some chances over the past few weeks, and he's up top paired with Carroll. So I would not be surprised if he actually has an opportunity to kind of score. Outside of that, Ben Bender, if he can get in there, he's got some assists. He had a goal against Atlanta. It'd be great if he can be on the score sheet there for it. But I know you guys don't want to have anybody on the score sheet tomorrow, so we'll see.
How about you, Jose? I mean, we obviously Daniel Gusler has been just absolutely on fire this season. Corey Burke's been kind of finding his own. Who do you think puts one in the back of the net for the Union? We had Bedoya, and I can't remember the second goal, or Daniel as well, scoring in the NYCFC.
I think I actually think that the international break will do more harm than good for Daniel Gastag, and that of cooling him off, coming off of the chemistry that he has with the Philadelphia Union, going into a national team camp. Probably not the best time for us to send an international player out there, but ultimately it's still great experience and a great accolade and thing for the Union to have under their belts in a roster. But I am still so intrigued. We got this player for peanuts in reality for what he should be worth. But Julian Carranza, coming from Miami and on a loan, a $6 million player who we're solely paying the salary in reality, is somebody who I am so intrigued. And when you finally pair him with Mikel Ua, I think it's going to be a very, very dangerous pairing that a lot of teams will be super. I think they're going to be really, really busy with them. So intrigued to see that partnership when it finally comes to fruition. But for tomorrow, I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be scrappy, and it's going to be a Corey Burke header or something like that. Just something random that we don't typically expect, or maybe even, hopefully a Bedoya goal to make up for the 70 minutes that he'll be slogging around the field. As much as I appreciate his captaincy.
Yeah, Alejandro. Of course, one of the oldest players on the team, but he's found fountain of youth a bit. He's been looking better. I think him being paired with Nathan Harry on that right side has certainly helped compared to having Olivier out there. All respect to Olivier, but I think Nathan has certainly earned a spot and has played much better overall. In terms of the goal scorer, yeah, Corey Burke is actually the favorite to score on FanDuel. He's at plus 145. Carranza, I've been waiting for that as well, Jose. I feel like he's due eventually to get that goal. And then Mika Ua is at plus 155 as well. Rios, as you mentioned, David, is at plus 320. And then Bedoya also at plus 320. So there's a lot of options on the table for goal scorers. I see Quinn Sullivan getting some love now from the sports books because of his recent run. He's at plus 210. So as David Miller and I always do, we always put some money down some games. So there's a lot of great options there. So if you think Charlotte's going to put one in the back of the net, I would say take a ride on Daniel Rios there at the plus 320. But a joking question you and I had talked about before, David, and now a question you kind of wanted me to bring up here is the cheesesteaks in Philly, right? For all those Charlotte people coming to Philly, you mentioned Larry's near St. Joe's. I actually have been to Larry's. Mind you, I went to Larry's at like 3 o'clock in the morning after a night out. So, of course, it was excellent. But from what I hear from all the St. Joe's people, Larry's is one of the best spots to go to. For myself, as I talked to you about before the show, I'm from South Jersey. So for me, Chick's Deli in Cherry Hill, Yellow Sub in Maple Shade, or Donkeys in either Camden or Medford. Excellent cheesesteaks, top of the line. So it's not always in Philly. But Jose, how are your thoughts? Any Philly cheesesteak spots, or do you think these Charlotte people can go to if they come by for a little bit of food?
I must admit, I am not a cheesesteak person. I'm, David. This is more of, and Mike, probably more of my routine when I go to the stadium. I stop at any one pizza shop. There's one specific in
Okay.
town in where I live, where I stop for at the pizza shop. Little tougher when it's a 1 o'clock kickoff, but they're kind enough to open up a little early so I can pick up mine. But usually a meatball parm, get to the stadium, lot C, open up the trunk, sit out there with a fat cigar, drink a few beers, and eat a meatball parm during these during these tailgates. So I don't usually venture too far from the stadium. I like to get there and just really sit there and watch it fill up. So I'm sorry I don't have many recommendations for a cheesesteak, but if you need a cigar recommendation, I can certainly let you know what I'm bringing tomorrow.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll say, man,
Eric's
if
not
you,
pleased with. Go ahead, David.
I was just gonna say, next time you come to Charlotte, you can bring the meatball parm down there, and we'll get the tailgate. We'll show you how we tailgate here in the South for you next time. So be good.
Love it.
Yeah, Jose, we the Charlotte game. I think I'm trying to remember now. I'm gonna look up the calendar real quick. When is that Charlotte game that we travel down there? I believe it's in June or July, right? When do we go down to Charlotte? We go down, I think, in not till Jesus, September, October. When is it? October. October 1st is when we go down to Charlotte, a Saturday night game. So might be a little cold on the tailgate. I don't know how the weather is in October in Charlotte, but hey, listen, maybe we'll bring down some meatball parms and some cheesesteaks and have at it. But yeah, that's trust me, you come to Philly, there's always good food here.
Looking forward to it. Yeah,
Yep.
I'll say an October game. It's either gonna be two things in Charlotte. It's gonna be sweltering hot during the day, and then it's gonna be below freezing at night. So it's gonna make sure you bring layers when you come down. But yeah, that sounds great, guys. So really looking forward to it if you come down.
That's so funny. Well, I guess we'll end on here with the last note here. David, a prediction for tomorrow's game, score wise. What are you thinking for tomorrow?
So I'll do a quick plug too, because I do a podcast
Yeah.
with some guys from Mint City Collective, but we did our preview episode yesterday on the Mint City Soccer Show, and so my prediction was a 1-1 draw. And one of the other hosts, Vaughn, actually predicted a 2-1 victory for you guys on that show. So we're not all just homers down here. He definitely is seeing that for you guys, but I'm still gonna lean in. I'm gonna say a 1-1 draw will be great.
I like it. How about you, Jose? What you're thinking there for the prediction?
I'm thinking a 2-0 win for our boys, the Philadelphia Union. I think we'll see one goal each half. One's going to be ugly through Corey Burke coming from across, and then we're going to have a nice little tap in from a Julian Carranza. Or just maybe, we finally see Mikel Ua have a nice, fast sprint. Because if you play FIFA Ultimate Team, he has got a lot of speed, and speed kills in that game. So he is a fast man, and I think he can get away from many.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, David, I'm going to agree with one of your, fellow hosts of the 2-1. I think offensively right now it's clicking, and that worries me. Like I said, as better as his defense has been with Nathan Harrell back there, I do worry that one gets through. Hopefully not the first goal of the game, but I definitely think they can put up a goal. And listen, I've been telling you guys earlier, I think Charlotte will certainly make this a fight. I don't think this is going to be an easy one whatsoever. Maybe Jose, hopefully we do, but I think it'll be more of a battle overall. But to end here, David, like I said, first of all, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you, getting to know you, and making this connection. Can you, before you sign off, can you give us one last plug or any sort of note for anyone who wants to join Charlotte FC or the Mint City Collective?
Yeah, I'll give a quick plug on two things. So one of the big things that we do here in the South is pregame and tailgate. So if you guys come down, you're traveling away supporters, come tailgate with us, come hang out with us. We're gonna be friendly. We have that Southern charm to be able to welcome anybody there. So come and hang out with us. We pregame every single match. We have a huge lot. All the supporters come together. It's kind of like our version of the Gulch in Atlanta, right? So it's a lot of fun. But if you're a Charlotte FC fan, you're watching the show, you want to join a supporter group, I'm going to be selfish and say, yeah, join Mint City Collective. That's the organization I help support and run. You can check us out on all the different social medias, mintcitycollective.com, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Mint City Collective. But there's tons of different groups out there. Like I said, there's 4 or 5 different other groups in Charlotte. Check them out as well. Find the right fit that's best for you. And best thing you can do is come into our stadium and make some noise and support a club. So yeah, come hang out with us.
Awesome, David. I appreciate it. And listen, for all the Charlotte fans that come up, like I said earlier in the show, be loud, say hello, be respectful, and we promise we'll boo you, but we'll treat you with respect as well. So I'm looking forward to it for a good atmosphere as always in Super Park. It's an electric place to be, and I think they're all going to enjoy it and have a great time. But that wraps up the show. As I mentioned earlier, for AAT Sports Network, I will be covering the Union match on Twitter. I'll also be covering the press conference with Jim Curtin and be live tweeting that out. So hopefully we have a good match tomorrow night. Charlotte goes up to Chester and faces the first place Philadelphia Union. But until next week, guys, have a great evening.
Bye, y'all.